As Rangers fans, we know that a goaltender is the backbone of a hockey team. At Abundant Wealth Management, we are your financial backbone, offering financial planning, wealth management, tax planning, and estate planning services. To schedule your free consultation, head to www.abundant-wealth.com. That's www.abundant-wealth.com. Abundant Wealth Management. Live, plan, triumph.
You're listening to Rangers Radio, your home for end-to-end coverage of the New York Rangers. With your hosts, Brendan Azoff, Zach Domino, and Steve Pappas. Blue Shirts fans, the puck drops now.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Rangers Radio. We got a full cast of characters today for this Sunday morning edition of the show. Steven, Zook, myself, we are all ready to dissect what's been a disappointing start to the New York Rangers season, one that I think a lot of us did not see coming in terms of how their analytics looked over the first couple of games and the lack of goal scoring and how that's all kind of fallen out from under them. So I'm going to kick things off, boys, because tonight they play a game against the Calgary Flames. And the Calgary Flames are in the midst of their own woes, which is an 8-game losing streak. They won their first game of the season. They've gone 0-7-1 since. The New York Rangers are on the road, which they're 3-0-1 on the road. So you'd think you'd be positive, but that's not the vibes that surround this team right now. And I know, Steven, you and I talked a little bit before we went on. I think I'm on the same wavelength as you. But if you're a betting man, who do you take tonight?
I'm taking Calgary money line. It's the easiest bet that you could have ever handed me. I don't know what the odds are. They could be minus a billion. I will still be taking the
Rangers
money line.
The Rangers are minus 130, which means in my mind the Flames have to be like plus 115 or plus 120. So they're giving you positive money. They're giving you good odds on the Flames tonight.
The fact that the Flames are plus money is a steal. That comment that just came out, this is a Flames get right game. Absolutely not. They're just going to beat the Rangers and suck afterwards. Like, what are we talking about? The Flames are a bad team the same way that the Sharks are a bad team, right? Like, it's got it written all over it that they're going to go out to Calgary. When have they played well in Calgary? When have they ever the only time that I remember is I think it was 2 years ago, maybe. I think Hedl had scored. They went out to Calgary. That was the year I think they swept the West Coast road trip. That was like October of 2023, the year that they won the President's Trophy. So
yeah, the only other time I think I remember them playing a good game where they wound up winning against Calgary was, I believe it was Alexis Lafreniere's OT winner, but that was at MSG. So I don't think that game, I can't remember a time where I watched a game in Calgary that the Rangers played and went, wow, they actually look good. I remember Henrik Lundqvist making a crazy blocker save and keeping them in that game, but I think they ultimately lost that one too.
I've watched good Rangers teams go out to Calgary and look bad. I've watched good Rangers teams go out west and look bad. What makes you think that this iteration of the New York Rangers, after watching them on Thursday night, and I had the pleasure of watching them in the building on Thursday night, and listen, I told I went with my whole family. I told my dad. My dad's a Ranger fan as well. I was like, before we got to the game, I said, "Hey, listen, this is going to be, they might not win, but this is what this game is not going to be is boring." And it clearly was not boring. But to my point is, this Rangers team is not going to go out to Western Canada and all of a sudden surprise us. So it would make all the sense in the world to wake up tomorrow morning if you're a sane person and go to bed at a normal time and see that the Rangers dropped the game in Calgary.
Well, on that note, boys, how's everybody doing? I have a couple of things that I want to throw at you during this episode. We're going to talk about, the start to the season. We're going to talk about Alexis Lafreniere, Will Cooley. We're going to talk about Chris Drury and what's been going on with this roster. But before we fully dive into the episode, how's everything going, gents?
It's good. It's good. I mean, it kind of sucks, like you guys are saying, what happened with the last week, because it's really shifted. Like it's back to where it was last year, where I'm like upset like the Rangers play. Like it's like, fuck, I have to watch the Rangers. Like they're gonna lug around for 60 minutes and get outplayed by a team that absolutely sucks. Like I'm always upfront about my lack of hockey knowledge, especially outside the East, more so outside the Rangers in general. The Calgary Flames are the team that I know like less about than anybody else. I just looked at their roster and I'm like, holy shit, these guys are on the Flames now. But I bet you there's 4 or 5 names after I watch tonight that I know because they're going to put the puck in the back of our net. And there's a lot of things you can complain about this team. And I was trying to pick one single thing that I think is the reason why this team is so bad in general. And I think it's kind of what the Rangers have had in the past. And when you have less talent, it kind of shows its face. They're the opposite of modern hockey, and specifically speed. This by far must be the slowest team in the NHL. They're not fast and they can't skate well because there's other ways to skate positively other than speed. But these teams that have bad players, at least the bad players are quick and are we're not even fast enough to attempt a forecheck. So it's not like we're not forechecking. We may be trying to forecheck, and just by the time we get down there, the puck's already going to our ends of the ice. This team is so slow. Whether it's Panarin, who we've seen for years, has just been coming. He's like the opposite of modern hockey. Everything he does. JT Miller is so slow. Alexei Lafreniere is slow and can't skate. Mika, when he gets it going, he can get it going, but still, that's nothing to write home about. Will Cooley's super slow. You look at our defensemen, even a guy like Adam Fox, who we all love and think he's elite, he's slow. There's not like a single piece of speed on this team. So before we went live, when I popped in, I saw, Steven, you were talking about like Connor Sheary and Taylor Radish. Other guys like that are bad on other teams at least have speed. So they're moving around the ice. They're skating like crazy. Everyone on our team is slow, and it just doesn't fit at all what's going on in modern hockey. And even if you're good, really good, which we aren't, but say we were with a lack of speed, you can still get overwhelmed if the other team is bad with speed because they're constantly on top of you. And it goes back to Drury. This team is just built the opposite of modern hockey. And it goes back to this comment. Sullivan's a good coach. With this lack of speed, there's no structure that can work. You can't dump and chase. They're not talented enough to get into the zone any other way. They don't have guys that can carry the puck on their stick. So there's probably nothing that's going to turn this team around. So we're back to where we've been the last million years, where it's if this team gets hot, it's because Igor is going to let up 3 goals over the course of 10 games, and we're going to win a bunch of games that we shouldn't. And I was the leader of this, you got to get out of your minds what happened the first 5 games. This team isn't going to analytically beat anyone that's worth a damn. Even if we do that to the Flames tonight, it's nothing to write home about. This team's ass. We should. So
on top of your misery, how much sleep have you been getting?
Well, I have a night nurse here, and she leaves on Thursday. So starting Thursday is when I'm going to get, a real lack of sleep. But
because I can just hear it in his voice. He's just beaten down right now.
The Rangers, it's a tough team to watch. Like you watch the Sharks game, and it's my wife was watching. She rarely knows nothing about the competition. When I told her that the Sharks were the worst team in the league without a win in the third period, she was like, "Wait, what? They're all over the Rangers." And I'm like, "Exactly." That's exactly what's wrong with this team.
There's the problem right there.
You ask someone who knows nothing about the opponents, and they're seeing the Sharks go up and down the ice on us, and it's like, where do you go? And the Sharks are a good example of it. They're young, they're quick, they're hungry. Even with all their faults, they're flying up and down the ice. They're putting pucks on net. We're the exact opposite of that.
I think I was first of all, let me just say this because I was going through the NHL Edge stats. It might be the worst website known to man, and leave it to the NHL to
it's awful.
Leave it to the NHL to come up with a really good, insightful, advanced analytics platform just for it to be the worst thing I've ever seen. I'm trying to sort right by bursts, just team bursts. They only give you 7 teams, the top 7, and they won't let you fit. What are we doing? I've got my own beefs, but. Listen, when you talk about Thursday night and the Sharks, you knew the Sharks are a quick team, right? The Sharks are going to go up and down the ice. The Sharks are going to go up and down the ice with most teams in the league because they have that youthful skill and energy. They're just not going to be able to defend. And again, you saw that they couldn't defend as well. It's just the better team, a good team finds a way to win that game. And the Rangers did not find a way to win that game. There's a lot of things.
The Devils did it the next night.
There's a lot of things that I could say about that game, and I'll just by being there, and I'll start, I guess, with the overtime. I didn't have as much. You guys might yell at me for this. I didn't have as much of a problem with Mika and Panarin and Fox kind of holding on to the puck in overtime. Because what's the biggest thing here in overtime is the possession. Is having possession of the puck. So you're not just going to shoot the puck on net for the sake of shooting it because you're in the offensive zone. So, I saw a couple comments. It was like they didn't want to go to the net. They didn't want to get to the net. It's like, again, there might be open ice, but, it's not, you need the possession of the puck in overtime. What I did not like, and, Shesterkin gave up 5-6 goals that night. I didn't think he was particularly bad. From where I was sitting, I didn't really think he was all that bad, but a hope play in overtime is not what you need. A Hail Mary pass down the center of the ice when I forgot who it was. I believe it was Braden Schneider. He had Braden Schneider wide open on the wall. Just get it to him and let him bring the puck up the ice. Instead, throw it down the ice. It gets intercepted. They go down the opposite way, and the puck ends up in the back of the net. So, when you talk about that overtime, that's more on the goaltender. And again, for a guy that gave up 5-6 goals to technically the worst team in the National Hockey League, I didn't think he had that bad of a night. I think he made some big saves. The Rangers were just so loose defensively. Again, I have so much to say on this game, so I'll break it up into segments. We'll start with that overtime because I've been to 4 overtime games in my life as a New York Ranger fan, and they've lost all 4 of them. So I sat there, and listen, I've had 2 in the last 2 weeks. The game in Toronto and the game on Thursday. So I've had some bad luck. Listen, I've been to 3 games. They got points in all of them. So in the grand scheme of things, it's not the worst thing in the world. But losing to the Sharks at home was a stinger.
And I want to touch on.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I want to touch on the overtime thing that you said because the possession is key, right? I think we've seen that, and every team's kind of developed that over the course of the 5-6 years that it's been in play now, especially the 3-on-3. The thing that I had a problem with is it's the same thing that goes on with their power play. If you're going to possess the puck and you're going to try to attack and keep circling back, you need speed, right? And
100%. That exacerbates. Like, I don't have a problem with it, Steven. It just shows the problem even more when it's 3-on-3 and our top 3 players can't break down the Sharks because they have negative speed between the 3 of them.
But the speed aspect it's twofold, right? You need the foot speed, right? Which the Rangers, obviously, they lack a little bit of that foot speed. I think we all agree on that. But there's a difference between just raw foot speed and play speed. Yeah, and the way that they're breaking up and moving up the ice, it's like they're almost waiting for somebody to find a seam so that they can make that hero play, as opposed to just going wide, getting the zone, moving when you don't have the puck. If you watch that, I think it was the first zone entry. They won the draw. There was a little bit of a battle on the draw. Panarin won it back to Fox. They get into the zone. There's 3 of them lined up at the blue line. There's no way that you could make a pass there that's going to get the Sharks' defensive, structure out of whack. And on top of that, it's actually a more higher risk play because now you're playing in that gray area of the ice where if you turn it over, it's a breakaway the other way. Mm-hmm. So it's a lack of structural speed on top of the fact that's compounded by the lack of foot speed that they actually have on their roster. If you're going into the zone 3-on-3 and you gain it with full possession of the puck carrier has to go low. You have to start to stretch that threesome out. And if you don't, and you just stay and you float in that little top of the circle area, it's so much easier to defend because their defenseman can sit in the slot. He's got no worries about you guys being behind him. It's hockey 101 that they continue to lack. And that, to me, was the biggest aspect. I love the possession side of it. And I think the hero play by Shesterkin, where he tried to throw it the length of the ice and get somebody streaking, was because he's watching this team as a goalie that he's given up 1 goal a game or fewer for the majority of the season. He had a rough night in terms of goals allowed. I agree with you, Steven. I don't think it was on him. But he's sitting there, and he's like, the only way that we're going to get anybody behind them with how we're setting up right now over these first 90 seconds is if I make that hero play. And he forced it. And there's no doubt about it that wound up coming back and biting them. I don't think that that's what actually bit them. I think the lackluster effort by JT Miller bit them in the ass. But to me, as a goalie, when you're watching that unfold and Igor Shesterkin sitting there like, I've given everything I can to try to get these team wins, I need to give a little bit something right now because I've allowed 5 in this game. And it backfired a little bit. But it's the lack of fundamental knowledge, the lack of playing with pace. You don't have to be overly fast to play with pace, and they just don't do either.
And yeah, you brought up JT Miller. Your captain playing zone defense on 3-on-3 overtime.
He just left the puck there.
And he just and zone defense when you're 3-on-3 basically means you're standing in no man's land. when it's not like it was a 3-on-1 and he just had to take up room in the center of the ice. They had the puck in our zone, and all three of our guys were back picking up other guys, and he just literally stood there. Another great shot by the Sharks. That was the thing. It was like a weird game for Igor because it wasn't like he went up against 50 shots. It was just like good goals. And then if you want to like, damn, that game makes me mad because you want to think about, playing good hockey. It's to give up those 2 goals with less than 10 seconds left. That's what starts this whole thing. Like that's even before overtime. That's the real reason we lost this game. Giving up both those goals with under 10 seconds left.
Can I jump in on this? Because I have a lot of thoughts on this, and they're the 2 guys that we've really hammered home about this year.
Will Cooley on the second one was the worst play of the season, keeping the puck in the zone.
Will Cooley at the end of the first period, for some reason with 6 seconds left, just not letting the puck get out of the zone. Inexcusable. No clue how that puck does not get out of the zone right there. And I said it as the play was going on. As soon as he knocks down the puck, and I'm sitting there like, why did the puck not get? Like, how does that not get out of the zone? And within 3 seconds, it's in the back of your net. And Alexis Lafreniere, who has been one of the worst Rangers that I've seen on the ice this year, one of the most useless players on this National Hockey League team. Again, at the okay. I'm gonna talk about.
No, Laf was the first period. Cooley was the second period.
I think it was the other way around. It was the end of the second. Was Lafreniere.
Yeah. Okay.
Second period was Lafreniere because it.
Oh yes, and then it went back the other. Yes.
Because I remember standing in line with one of my buddies and my dad, just going back and forth for the entire intermission. Of there was 15 seconds left. Why the fuck did you try and make a hero play?
Put the puck
try and send it to the middle of the ice. This goes into my whole thing about Alexis Lafreniere and apparently people on Twitter have, loved it because those are the 2 tweets that I've had in the last, 72 hours that have had over 100,000 in, views and stuff like that. Alexis Lafreniere, listen, you can argue with a wall that he was not set up in the right, the right system to succeed and play third line minutes, whatever. I watched Macklin Celebrini. I watched Will Smith. I watched these 2 guys just bitch slap an NHL team on their home ice all night. 3 goals from Celebrini, 2 goals from Will Smith. That's what a top pick is supposed to look like. They're supposed to impact the game. Yep. They're supposed to drive the play. And our first overall pick, and I think it's also the part of watching Jack Hughes be so successful this year and watching Matthew Schaefer just absolutely tear up whoever he's playing immediately at 18 years old. You're not supposed to do that at 18. There are plenty of good players in the league now that weren't doing that at 18. So to sit there and at the end of the first period, right, you get absolutely run out of your own building by statistically the worst team in the league. And you sit there, how is this team going to respond? How is this team going to come back? You have JT Miller as the captain. You have Mike Sullivan as the head coach. They are preaching in that locker room that the second period effort needs to be so much better. And in a minute and a half into the fucking period, you take a stupid interference penalty to start. What are you doing? You can't do that. And sure, he gets the assist later on the power play to get him a goal back. The fact that he was on the power play in and of itself after taking that penalty to start the second period, I thought was criminal. I don't think you can't have him be out on you can't reward a kid that is actively sabotaging your team to reward him with power play minutes. So you start that period by taking a penalty right after you have one of the worst periods of the season on home ice against the worst team in the league. Then you go down at the end of the period. You have a 1-goal lead about to head into the third period. There's 15 seconds left in the period or 20 seconds left in the period, whatever it is. You have cycle possession in the offensive zone. You are hemming the Sharks in their own zone at the end of this period after taking a 4-3 lead, and you turn around and fire the puck into that gray area where the turnovers happen, and then the puck goes down the ice and ends up in the back of your net again with 7 seconds left. That is inexcusable. That is something that just cannot happen. That's not like developing skill. That's hockey 101. That's hockey 101 is not taking a stupid interference penalty to start the second period after getting jumped on your home ice by the San Jose Sharks and not making a hope play up a goal with 15 seconds left in the period in a 1-goal game. You just can't do that. That's just, listen, you are taught that, and both of you can attest to this. You are taught that at Pee Wee hockey, at 8U hockey, you're taught that.
Younger.
right? How are you sitting there as the number 1 overall pick, sitting there on Madison Square Garden ice and making these plays and making these decisions? That's not skill. That's not a organization not putting that player in the correct place to succeed. That is poor hockey IQ and poor hockey skill. And unfortunately, this is who you have. This is who your top overall pick is. He's a guy that has no clue what he's doing on the ice. It's atrocious.
And don't let the fact that it didn't bite us in the ass stop us from talking about that we did the same thing in the third period, that we iced it with 6 seconds left, that gave them 2 shots on net.
It was Will Cooley. And it was Will Cooley.
It was Will Cooley, right? Why? Chip the puck out.
Yeah, and the funniest thing about it is I was legit getting dog walked on social media this offseason when I said it. All I said, my statement was literally, it would not be the end of the world if someone offer sheeted Will Cooley an amount that had us walk away with a first rounder and a third rounder. Like, that's all I was saying. And that was like, someone would have had to give him like 6 points, like an exorbitant amount. And my point was, if that happened, it's not the end of the world. What would we get for Will Cooley today? Like, what would he get for a nice third line winger that, like, we may be giving him more credit for saying he's a nice third line winger because he dropped to the third. He sometimes drops to the third line when Sullivan's making changes, and he still does nothing when he's there. So, like, he might have just been a case where he got hot for a few weeks last year, scored 15 goals. You could even tell, like, the last half of his season last year, he did nothing. He's an okay hockey player where if you have a bunch of really other good players, maybe he fits in your third and fourth line. He has no business being in your top 6 at all because he can't skate, he can't create, and he can't score goals. It's just a lot of bad hockey players. And you go back to Jack Hughes and Schaefer, and I'm beating a dead horse right now. I see those guys, I think, speed. Like, Schaefer's getting the puck, he's flying down the ice. Jack Hughes, maybe one of, like, besides McDavid, maybe, from a forward standpoint, the quickest and best skater in the NHL. Beside that, he's literally going down the seam, and, like, defensemen just can't even pinch close enough to stop him. And we don't have that. There's no excitement for this team. When we score a goal, it's shooting a puck from the blue line and having it hit someone or go in, getting a long-range slap shot to go in. There's no creativity. There's no bing, bang, bing, bang goal. Like, our nicest goal was Loft, just a slot pass on a power play to Mika, and that going in.
Parsonen had a nice one, too. Nice finish.
Parsonen did have a nice one. I'll give Parsonen.
That was the first time when I sat there and saw somebody hold on to the puck, and I said, "This is actually going to go in."
And he's way better than Loft or Cooley. That's the biggest problem with all of this. Like, when are we going to see Parsonen?
I think he's been one of their best forwards this year.
When are we going to see Parsonen on the first line? Because that's coming. That's coming where he's going to get a chance sometime soon.
We'll get into that.
If you talk to scouts, right, and when we all think of NHL scouts that are scouting at the amateur levels, the one thing that we think they're looking for is, how many goals and points did this guy have in this game? That's not what they're looking for. They're looking for the mental side of it, right? If you have a bad play, how do you bounce back next shift? Are you going to throw a temper tantrum about it? That type of thing.
Our guys,
if you look at the Rangers, they do. And if you look at the Rangers side of it, Will Cooley was a second-round pick. I think Will Cooley's turned into a very serviceable NHL player for where they drafted him. But the problem is the processing aspect of it. I go back to the play where he came out, this wasn't against the Sharks, but he came out off the half wall, won a board battle, and had a 2-on-0 in the net front with Panarin standing in the slot and decided to try to rip it short side. That's a processing thing. If you have a higher skilled guy that has that puck, he's going cross ice because that's the one time where you're not actually forcing the play. I agree with the pucks to the net mentality, but that's a situation where that puck from his angle doesn't need to get to the net. It needs to.
How often do we gain the zone and turn around? Like, that's killing me.
So
like,
that's a play that high skilled guys need to do, not Will Cooley.
People gain the zone, they take the puck around the net, they're cycling it. The Rangers gain the zone, and Panarin's the number one guy at this, and I think they've all learned from him. They cut back. They immediately
because if you have the skill to make the seam passes, it works. But if you don't, and you're just, especially if you cut back on your strong side, where now you're cutting back to your backhand, you're not making that pass. Panarin is on his off wing, and he does it for that reason. But going back to Lafreniere quickly, who is the only Rangers forward that they've drafted over the last 25 years that had a 100-point season?
With the Rangers or anywhere?
Not Chris
anywhere.
Kreider.
JT Miller, right?
JT Miller, and he did it with Vancouver.
It was with
Vancouver.
Vancouver.
So
Yeah.
now they get the remnants of JT Miller because
He's awful.
they
He's awful.
drafted him. They wanted him back. I don't think he's been good by any stretch of the imagination. And you could say he's battling an injury. Well, if you're that hurt where you're really going to be a detriment, don't play. And if the Rangers now they have
Why do our captains do that? Why do our captains play through injuries at a detriment to us?
I get it's a hockey thing, right? But it's just if you're banged up to the point where you can't be your level of play, all he had to do was sit the first 3 games and he might have been better, right? Yep. So that stuff just pisses me off. But when you look at it, the only elite player that they've drafted since really 2014 is Igor Shesterkin, who's in goal. And that's where the problems come. And the only way you're going to be competitive in this NHL, especially during the salary cap years, is by drafting and developing an elite top 6 player. Now, you can say that Alexei Lafreniere is a bust, and I think we're getting to that territory.
For sure.
You could say that Kaapo Kakko was a bust, and I think that's fair based on what he was touted to be. But the Rangers, when they made those picks, those were not picks where you were like, why'd you take them? Those were consensus players at that position. So that's not a drafting thing. That's not a development thing. That's the fact that these 2 guys just happened to be the 2 guys the Rangers selected, and they didn't develop the way that you wanted it to. And I don't think that was necessarily on the Rangers. I think that was on the players themselves and the lack of elite qualities that they really had. Alexei Lafreniere always had hands, but if you look at his draft year, the one thing scouts said was his foot speed's not there. And in the modern NHL, that's what you need. Yep. Kaapo Kakko was never highly touted for his speed. He was touted for his size, and we saw how he protected the puck in the offensive zone. The problem was he never did anything with those puck protectors. So you look at the Devils and Jack Hughes, Nico Hischier, those guys that have come up and been very productive. You look at the Islanders now, they drafted high. They got Matthew Schaefer first overall, and he looks like he's going to be an elite defenseman in this league. The Rangers, unfortunately, have not had that success with their draft picks, and that's why you're sitting in this situation. To me, that's the end-all, be-all, is you could sign whoever you want in free agency. You could bring in all these big names. If you do not have your young kids playing to that level, and the sad part is we don't even know if Gabe Perreault is going to be at that level because the Rangers are the only team in the damn NHL that refuses to give an under-21 player an actual chance at playing in the NHL level in a season where they can't score goals from their top 6.
His lineman was going up and down the ice on us, and it's like sitting like, and Perreault can't, see any ice time. And they even said that on the call. They're like, oh, who did Will Smith play with? Perreault. One's stuck in Hartford, one's on Madison Square Garden ice, making plays up and down. But
it was Ryan Leonard, Will Smith, Gabe Perreault was that line.
Yep.
That line was dominant.
Yep.
Will Smith is now playing every day in the NHL top 6 for the San Jose Sharks. Ryan Leonard, I don't think he's actually in their top 6. They kind of fluctuate their lines, but he's now playing every day with a much better Washington Capitals team. You're telling me in a season that you clearly are struggling with your top 6 offensive production. This is not the time to give him a shot. He's not going to learn more from playing in the top 6 with guys like Panarin, Miller, Zibanejad, under Mike Sullivan, who you believe is the head coach of your future. He's not going to learn more in that situation. He's going to learn more in Hartford. Yeah. Meanwhile, the same team that wouldn't promote Knobloch from Hartford when they needed a head coach is the same team that's going to rely on their Hartford development. But the only person that they've promoted from Hartford to the NHL level in a short order would be Chris Drury, who's arguably the worst GM in the NHL. So I have to talk about
maybe
Chris
in
Drury.
sports.
I want to talk about contracts, but I'll let you guys devour that for a little bit.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I'll let you go because mine's going to be short. I just wanted to say to Brendan's point, because you were saying it a little bit, as much as it's on the Rangers and when it happens constantly, it has something to do with them. I think sometimes we forget how much of player development is also still on the player. So, I just think some of these guys don't have it. And that goes to, the Rangers' almost worst point versus developing them is actually choosing them when they don't have the stuff that, can make you a great player in modern hockey. There was really nothing they could have done about Kakko and Loff. Those were the 2 guys that they had to pick at those spots. But the Rangers coaches could be trying to develop these guys as much as they possibly can. If Loff, is a guy who isn't putting in the work, is stuck in his ways, doesn't have the certain skill or speed to be able to do some things, I just think the Rangers got unlucky where they were pigeonholed into they had to draft certain guys because they were the consensus picks at those picks. And it just happened during a time where there was a real crossover in what works in modern NHL hockey. And it's all speed at this point. If you have nothing else and you have speed, you're going to be able to do something. And these guys are the opposite, where, between Kakko and Loff, those 2 guys can't even skate really. On top of being fast, you can't be fast if you literally can't skate. So it's just a case where I want to keep hammering the Rangers because they have something to do with it. But it's also these players just have to buy it. And if the player doesn't want it, it doesn't matter how much coaching they're getting. And I think that is what some of the individual young guys the Rangers have the problem.
Obviously, you can look at history with 2020 or whatever it is. Like, you can look back at history and say, well, they should have done this, they should have done that. In 2019, if they sat there and they took someone other than Capo Caco at number 2, everybody and their mother would have sat there and said, what a terrible pick, what a horrible organization. How do you not take Capo Caco at 2? In 2020, if we sat there and you see that ping pong ball come up and they walk out to the stage and number 1, they don't say Alexis Lafreniere, and you're sitting there like, what the hell are they doing? This is 2 years in a row. Like, I 100% agree with you, Zook. I think the fact that we forget that a lot of player development happens is dependent on the player is huge. And I'm starting to realize that more with Lafreniere than anything, in the fact that, listen, some of these plays that he makes, like, yes, he doesn't have the foot speed. That's a physical, you can only get so much better at getting quicker on the ice. But it's that hockey IQ that just isn't there from Alexis Lafreniere, and to a degree wasn't necessarily there from Capo Caco. I mean, listen, Caco, I loved, when Caco would be assertive in the offensive zone, it'd be fantastic. But he would do nothing with the puck. So he would have the possession and he would keep possession and he would, throw a back check into somebody and ward off all these defenders, but do nothing with it. And Lafreniere, it seems like it's more confusion than ever sometimes with the puck. It's like these 2-on-1s where you should pass, he's shooting. If he should shoot, he's passing. If he does shoot, he's nowhere near the net. He's not in the position on the power play or in the offensive zone to do anything. He's not moving to make himself open. That's the other thing that I despise about this power play unit, and it's a bit of a sidebar, but you watch them, they don't move. Like, you watch, there's nobody off the puck that is moving and trying to get open. You watch some of the best power plays in the league. You watch some of the most average power plays in the league, and there's still movement. Like, the Rangers just don't move. It is Fox in the middle at the top. It is Mika Panarin and JT Miller sitting in at 3 at the front, and then whoever, Lafreniere, somebody down low. And for some reason, we have decided to throw Mika Zibanejad in that distributor role. And we've seen him, listen, I'll be more positive about Mika than probably both of you, but we saw him against Montreal just absolutely laser one past Montembeault. We saw him right off the stick against San Jose on the power play. Like, the fact that guy is not sitting in Ovi's office and they're not feeding him. I've been watching a lot of Buffalo Sabres games recently. Like, I live in the area, had a friend from college who just got called up to the Sabres, so I've been very invested in Buffalo. And I watched Tage Thompson. Tage Thompson's shot is unbelievable. And what do? They have Dahlin make sure that they're setting up their guy with a wicked shot to put him in a position to score goals. This is, again, going off the rails of my Lafreniere beef, and I think I've hammered that home enough on social media, so I'll try and lay off the kid for a little bit. But I mean, he's on that top power play unit and there's just no movement. There's no creativity. Everybody is, a lot of the times, like you said earlier, Brendan, like, they're standing in that gray zone at the top, like in between the top of the circles and the blue line, where you turn the puck over and all of a sudden it's a 2-on-1 the other way. And listen, they're the Rangers, on the flip side of that, might be the best team in the league shorthanded at creating turnovers in that
which you would think would translate to the other side. They know what not to do, but no.
Yeah.
Or translate when it's 5-on-5 and they have a 2-on-1 to make the right play. It's like a 2-on-1 when they're 5-on-5 versus shorthand. Like, something's going on in their head that changes how they play. It's just crazy to see how they move on offense. It's because they attack because they know then they got to go right back.
Back to player development.
Let me go quick. Let me go back.
Back to player development. This is Hedl talent-wise was the best of the three. And it's just the fact that he just can't stay healthy, and it's unfortunate that he can't stay healthy. But Philip Hedl showed it on the ice that he was developing. It just he could not stay healthy for the life of him, and still unfortunately can't do it.
He was
So
like the only guy that could get the puck in
common,
the neutral zone and gain the zone and like get a close shot at net. Like he has that ability, and no one else on the Rangers can really start a rush and finish a rush.
So the common denominator in all this is the general manager. It's Chris Drury, right? He came on board in 2021. Since that time, he's now hired his third head coach in Mike Sullivan. I know that when this summer came around, we all said that Chris Drury probably should not be the one that gets the opportunities to select the third coach. And, he got Mike Sullivan right. I think we could all agree Mike Sullivan's a good coach, but that's neither here nor there. So 2-year stints for both Gerard Gallant and for Peter Laviolette. And instead of taking any type of onus or accountability for just the debacle that he created last year off the ice, and instead of Dolan looking at him and going, okay, maybe we need a change in leadership, they extend Drury and let him fire another head coach and hire Mike Sullivan. Since that time, since they hired Mike Sullivan, he has constructed a roster that really has 8 bottom 6 forwards playing in the top 12, right? So the only true and proven top 6 forwards that they have at this point are JT Miller, Artemi Panarin, Mika Zibanejad, and then maybe you could argue with either Vincent Trocheck or Alexei Lafreniere, depending on where you want to go with that. But in that same time frame, this roster has felt Vincent Trocheck's injury more than the Florida Panthers have felt Alexander Barkov's. That's how you know your roster is constructed poorly. Okay, that's a ridiculous thing to say out loud because of the importance that Barkov has and because of how good Alexander Barkov is. But the Rangers look like a significantly worse team without Vincent Trocheck than the Panthers do without arguably one of the best top 10 forwards in the NHL. It's ridiculous. He traded Keandre Miller and Chris Kreider, which I think we all agree were probably the right moves at the time. And instead of replacing them with the Perreaults, the Offmans, the Berards, or the Scott Morrow who we got in the trade, he replaced them with NHL veterans like Radish and Connor Sheary, who are now in the top 6 for some ungodly reason. On top of that, he gave ridiculous contracts. Sheary's a good hockey player, not in your top 6.
No,
he gave ridiculous contracts to Will Borgen in season after he played, 7 games for the Rangers. He's now $4.1 million through 2030. Why? No one knows. He signed Urho Vakanainen for literally no reason. And on top of all of that, he is now in the helm for a contract extension that we don't even know if he's going to be on the hot seat with how bad this team's played. So I put all of that into perspective to say that the common denominator is obviously the general manager, Chris Drury. And I don't care how talented the players are on the ice. I don't care what the situation is around the team. If the guy in charge of building the team is just inept at his job, you're not going to have success in this league. How many good teams have we seen that have talent on the roster that just get killed in the postseason or don't live up to their expectations because the general manager just had too many flaws with the group? Edmonton Oilers, case in point, right?
Yep.
Case in point. The only thing that they've needed over the last how many years is a quality goaltender come the Stanley Cup playoffs. And the only thing that their GM, and now it's their second GM, hasn't been able to do is give them a quality goaltender. Chris Drury is the same exact way. And I find it very hard to sit here, watch this team, be critical of the players, and say, oh, I think that they're going to be able to improve in the future when the guy at the helm is clearly the problem.
Yeah, and the two bad things about Chris Drury right now is, A, he's probably tied to Sullivan, which sucks because I think we all agree Sullivan is probably the right coach in the near future. And I just don't know if Dolan's ever going to fire Drury as long as Sullivan is here, which sucks. And the other thing is he's a prospect hugger who refuses to play prospects.
Yep.
Like what the years where we had chances, he wouldn't trade guys to then not even play them. And we could have gotten Kakko, Othman, and let's say a 1 for Jake Gensel. I'm not going to say we would have won the Stanley Cup, but we were close and we would have been the favorite probably at that point if we had Gensel. Now we're going to end up, instead of getting Gensel in a Stanley Cup, we have Will Borgen, who we got for Kakko. Othman is going to be traded for probably an AHL player of similar quality and just let's see if a new environment swap changes 2 guys. And that first round pick ended up probably being someone like EJ Emery. So would you rather Will Borgen and EJ Emery or Jake Gensel? So I just hate when people operate in 2 different ways. Like if he's someone who never trades prospects because he's always giving them the chance to play and they're just not proving themselves, that's one thing, but that's not the case. and he's not doing the other side of it where he's always trading prospects like you see a lot of great teams, because the pro a lot of times ends up being better than what the prospects turn into. He just does neither. He doesn't trade them and he doesn't play them. So, and then these guys just get older, and by the time they're 24 or 25, they have no NHL experience. The game has gone by them. They're not developed. You end up moving them for nothing or in a swap for someone of similar value with the hopes that that person just turns it on for you. It's just, he just builds this team. It seems like Dolan's probably in his ear, and he's probably scared ever to have a full season where it's just a complete rebuild. He's always just putting Band-Aids on things, and that's why you see him making, one or two moves that make absolutely no sense. The scary thing about that is Borgen and Euro don't fit into that at all. Like you're saying, Brendan, those moves make no sense no matter how you want to say he's looking at the team. Giving Will Borgen that contract at that time, you probably could have gotten him for $1 million less and less years on the open market when he saw that no one else was giving him that money. Euro makes literally 0 sense.
No,
you probably could have gotten
about Carson Soucy yet either.
Yeah, you could have gotten Euro probably at the minimum in the offseason. Carson Soucy giving up a 3rd-round pick. And what is he, like 3.5 million?
3.45. Now that's not his contract, so I'm not saying that. But Chris Drury
it
traded
is
real
once
assets.
you agree to trade for him, though.
Traded real assets for that.
3.5, 1.8, and 4.1. That's basically 10 million tied up in 3 defensemen that on good teams are fringe defensemen. At the best, they're playing on your 3rd line.
Can I ask this?
That's a solid player. That's a star. Connor McDavid just signed for 12.
I had this thought as I was leaving the arena on Thursday. Outside of the 2021-22 trade deadline, where they got Kopp and Mott and Vetrano, what move has Chris Drury made that has been a good one? What signing has he made that has been an impact player? What trade that has he made that has been a good trade for the Rangers outside of that one deadline? All these other deadlines have been miserable. And it goes from either the deals that have been made or the deals that weren't made during those trade deadlines. So what free agent signing and what trade deadline acquisition has he gotten that is worth a shit since that first one?
No,
my cop-out answer, and we don't know it yet because we haven't done anything and we're unwilling to play Morrow, is like, I like the Miller deal if we weren't going to re-sign him. But again, there's nothing – we haven't even drafted the 1st or 2nd round pick of that guy. And I know I was looking at it yesterday, actually. If it's a top 10 pick, we don't even get it this year. I think it's between like the Hurricane and the Stars maybe. And it's funny because every mock draft you see in the NHL, they want to get Rangers fans to interact it. So we end up getting the 11th pick. So we choose like 4th and 11th just so Rangers fans will comment on the post. But I do like that trade because realistically we weren't going to re-sign him. The other side of that is people are saying if you're not going to pay Morrow and we can't develop people, you probably just should have ran it one more season with Keandre Miller. I think that's an overreaction. I think if you can get a 1st, 2nd, and a top prospect for him, that's a great trade. But again, the fact that that's the answer and the best is an unknown because everything we know has been bad shows you how bad of an answer it is.
Well, it's 2 firsts, so that's
where
it
was a 1st and it's 2 first. I thought it was
a
1st, 2nd. It's a 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and Morrow. Yeah, it's a 1st, it's a 2nd, it's a 3rd, and it's Morrow. Yeah, they have 2 firsts because of that.
So here's my thing, and I think this comment kind of encapsulates where my logic is, right? I know that all 3 of us are on the bandwagon that the Shesterkin deal is not what's making or breaking this team, and that's a goal you have to keep around. Okay. I don't mind that deal because in a rising cap situation, $11.5 million should not restrict you from filling out the rest of your roster with capable NHL players. But by signing that contract, you do kind of say, okay, we're keeping around one of the top 3 goalies in the NHL. We need to have a contention window now that's going to last that contract and at least put us into the upper echelon of the Eastern Conference, where they were not too long ago, just about 18 to 24 months ago. Over that time frame, he has deteriorated the group to the point where you could say that trading away the guys that he traded away made sense, and I think that most of them did. But if you're not going to replace that because you're giving out bad contracts to guys that don't deserve it, you're not only signaling that you should be in a contention window and you're just inept at handling the roster, but you're signaling that you don't know how to evaluate players the right way to run an NHL franchise, let alone an original 6 team. And on top of that, right, when we talk about contracts, this is kind of the game I wanted to play with you guys. I'm going to go through a couple of contracts that the Rangers currently have, and I want you to tell me, based on how they've played so far this year and over their careers, if these contracts are good or bad for the New York Rangers. So to start it off, we'll start with the aforementioned Alexis Lafreniere.
Awful.
7 years left at $7.45 million through. He's got a moderate no trade clause that kicks in at the start of the 2027-28 season, which means you essentially have 2 years to move him.
Unplayable.
Good or bad contract?
Terrible contract, unplayable. The only hope is that maybe the salary cap rises so much the next year or two that his 7.4 looks like 5.5 to someone, and you can move him for something. He's terrible. Like, he is nothing. He's nothing. He's bad.
Yeah, that's a horrendous contract. I think there's no saving him at this point, at least in a Ranger uniform. He's unintelligent on the ice, which I think is worse than unskilled.
It's worse. It's way worse. It's way worse.
Because there's not a clue that's going through his head when he's out on the ice. And especially for some reason, Chris Drury's affection of giving out no trade, no move, no you have to stay here clauses in every single contract that he gives out just continues to hammer home the point that he's one of the worst general managers in the NHL. If we're going to give a grade, D- at the best. At its best, it's a D-.
It's funny you say that, because my dad's number one thing that he absolutely hates about sports out of all of our teams is Chris Drury and the no movement, no trade clauses.
It's more
like we give more years and more money and then sweeten it with no movement clauses when it should be the opposite. It's okay. It should be okay. You can probably get 4 years. I'm going to give you 3. You can probably get $5 million. I'm going to give you $4 million. But because I'm giving you less, I'm going to give you a no movement clause. Except we give you an extra year, we give you an extra $1 million, and we say if you stink, we're going to give you something that says you could stay here. My dad.
The only contract that he actually did it the right way was Gavrikov and 7x7. The next one, Will Borgen, $4.1 million. Not only did he get an extension after not really doing anything for the Rangers, but he signed until the 2030 season, and he has a moderate no trade clause throughout. Good or bad contract?
That's terrible again. That's
bad.
D+.
You probably get someone at half that money. You probably get someone at half that money playing third line right defense minutes, which if you want Borgen to be successful, that's what you got to give him. And why the contract works twofold is because of that contract, you keep trying to pigeon him as a top 4 defenseman. Where if you had someone who was 1.5 or 2, you feel a lot more comfortable just saying, okay, he's a third pair defenseman, let's put him there. And you probably get that for $1.5 or $2 million last summer.
So
I don't want to dunk on Borgen, because I think Borgen's a decent player. Like, it's not fine. It's not at the same level as Lafreniere, but it's like, again, giving a no trade clause. Why? What's the point? What's the point of giving it? Hey, listen, all respect to Will Borgen. Will Borgen's a good NHL player. Why does Will Borgen need a no trade clause? Why?
He doesn't.
Or 5 years or $4.1 million. Why does he need any?
He's not a second pair defenseman. He's a very good guy to have as your third right D, and unfortunately, they're paying him second pair money, so that's where they feel like they have to play.
And it seems like it's Chris Drury's MO to. I almost bring it back to like the Mets, where it feels like you have a general manager that's trying to be smarter than the system. And it's like, we can pay these guys to play roles that we think they could play, but they just can't. They just can't do it. No, I don't understand. A D+.
Damn, Nick Mangold died.
He died?
Nick Mangold died.
I thought he just put something out that he was in need of a.
That's organ. Awful. Yeah, he needed a kidney, and I saw him like doing the rounds, and like obviously he had stuff going on, but he looked fine. Like, that was quick.
Jeez.
Kidney disease. Wow. Yeah, just had to say that out loud because that's unexpected news. That's
crazy.
Borgen is a third line right D who, if someone were to get hurt for a game or 2 or a week, you can move him up to the second line and feel okay about it, knowing that he's going back. But I mean, at 4, it's like, again, like Steven said, obviously the Loft one is much worse because that 7.5 can stop you from doing stuff. Like the 4.1 from a cap space isn't detrimental, but it's like the player just doesn't work at that number. And if you didn't have him, you're probably playing Morrow. So
let's go to these. We'll do these two together because one isn't a contract that was signed, but one is one that was a first round pick was traded for, and they're both locked up until the end of the 2030 season, which they would be age 37. So JT Miller, $8 million through 2030. He's got a 15-team no-trade list that starts in 27-28. Outside of that right now, until that season, he's on a full no-move. And Mika Zibanejad, $8.5 million through 2030. He's got a full no-move clause all the way until his last year, where it's a modified no-trade list. Good or bad contracts?
The JT Miller. See, and you said this before, and I wanted to bring it up. Like when the Igor contract made Drury feel like he had to make a move like Miller, where like you're selling future parts for the present. I almost think that should have flipped it. When you're signing Igor at the length that you had, you really had 1 or 2 seasons to almost like reset it and not do that, because Igor is good enough where if you're rebuilding, you would have been as good as you are now because he would have stole you some games. And then the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th year of his contract, you have a whole new team in front of him. Both those guys, again, they're not aging right. They're not aging good at all. And Mika's probably quicker than JT Miller. But JT Miller may just be another guy where like the modern NHL isn't playing into his strengths. Like you see him lumbering around the ice. He's not the most creative guy. You got to be really, really elite to be a power forward in today's NHL. And I don't know if JT Miller is up there. You got to have some skill. You got to have some creativity. He's not fast. He doesn't have that creativity. I don't think he has the best shot in the world. So I don't know if he's in your top 6 at this point. I don't know if he can be the best player on his line. And the Rangers are throwing him out there with guys like Will Cooley, Lafreniere, and Sheary. So he's got to be the best player on the line. Mika, the contract stinks, but I think at the time you give him he deserved that contract. So that one's a Monday morning quarterback where it's not aging well, but at the time with Mika, and I think everyone really agrees with it. Like if you turn back the clock to that moment, you were very happy with the Mika Zibanejad contract.
I'm always high on Mika, so I'll, probably defer that aspect of it. I think it could have been a better contract. I think Mika gets the worst rap out of any Ranger despite being, one of the best of this era of Ranger hockey. JT Miller, there's so much to think about with him. Like there's so much unknown right now with him. And is he playing hurt? If he gets 100% healthy, can he be better? Can he be more effective? So it's hard to fully give a grade to the JT Miller contract now. And it's not, again, it wasn't obviously, like you said, it wasn't one that they gave him, but you traded a 1st-round pick for it. I think it's way too early to give a grade on JT Miller. Well, talk to me in 2 years. In 2 years, if it's the same that we've seen for the start of this year, then yeah, it's a bad contract. But if he's gets healthy and turns it around and becomes this really good captain, or really good piece for this new era of Ranger hockey, then I think it's a great deal. Mika, I'm fine with Mika. I like Mika. I think Mika is a good player. I was overly frustrated with him last year, but I just because I knew, and most of us, I feel like most of the smart people, at least in this fan base, which there aren't many, but there's enough, understand what he's capable of when he's going right.
So the last 2, one is Urho Vakanainen, $1.5 million through 2027. So 2-year deal there. He's able to be traded if they find anybody willing to take him. And then Vincent Trocheck, $5.63 million with a moderate no trade clause through 28-29. Good or bad contracts?
The Euro one is ridiculous.
Can I go lower than an F? Can I go E?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can go Z.
Z. I'll go Z. I'll go Z.
You couldn't even find a team in
you couldn't go to the Swiss
Shanghai
League.
Dragons.
Yeah, like in the KHL, you couldn't even find a team to trade for him. And I think Trocheck's the one good one where we talked about it last year. If they were ever willing to move Trocheck at that contract, I think people would scoop him up real quick. For a playoff team needing a middle 6 center, he fits perfectly. His term and his years with the new salary cap numbers are just great. That I think Trocheck's the one deal that was a good deal. It sucks that he's hurt right now. I also think that he's been asked to probably do a little bit more than he could with his skill, but he's fitting admirably. And he's the guy where if the Rangers did become full sellers, he's the one that I think people are knocking on the door to get, because he's easily he can fit, I feel, into anyone's salary cap at this point.
So the purpose of this exercise was to show that the only definitive contract that we all will agree on is actually good is Vincent Trocheck's. So out of the largest contracts, and I excluded Panarin from this list because I think Panarin's done a lot for the Rangers and he's also in the last year of his deal.
Yeah.
So if they bring back Artemi Panarin at this point for $11 million a year, then we could put that on the list as a bad contract. But out of the 6 that I just mentioned, the only definitive yes that we all agree on is Vincent Trocheck, which means that you have a problem. When 6 contracts that your GM has either acquired or given out are not great, you're going to have a hard time building a team around.
Did he give Fox his deal?
He gave Fox his $9.5 million deal, I believe.
That one's fun.
I don't have a problem with
the 3 of us could have done that deal. Like that's just.
I don't have a problem with the Fox one. Whether you want to argue if he's regressed or not, whatever. I'm not
argue the wall.
Do that.
Yeah,
I'm not
no,
going
he's
to do that
fine.
today. But
he was fine when the salary cap was what it was. That contract is going to look even better by the time it's over.
Luke Hughes is making 9.5.
Exactly.
Correct. And they didn't have Gavrikov when that was given out. So you had one defenseman that you trusted wholeheartedly. You have to sign him. So that's not being included here. The Gavrikov one, I think, is a good contract. I like the way that Gavrikov plays. But the problem, again, is that outside of their top 2 defensemen, who do they have? So when you're saddled with these contracts and you look around the league and I don't see any people clamoring over these guys, it's going to be pretty hard to be in that competitive window with the goaltender. So to me, the Igor Shesterkin contract is not the issue. It's the other contracts that this team has where any team in their right mind that's contending would sign Igor Shesterkin for $11.5 million, but you can't contend because you have other contracts that are piss poor, and the contracts that are not piss poor were given to guys that simply just aren't NHL caliber players at this point. I mean, when Taylor Radish is leading your team in goals and looking like the most noticeable forward in a game against the San Jose Sharks, you have some much deeper rooted issues. And that's not a knock on Taylor Radish. He's a 20-goal scorer in the NHL before. It's a knock on the rest of the team. Artemi Panarin finally woke up from his slumber, had 2 good games, and then played a Sharks team where he should dominate and had nothing. Mika Zibanejad had a goal on the power play. Outside of that, didn't really do much. JT Miller didn't really do much besides give the Sharks their game-winning goal in overtime. That's where the problem lies, and until the guy that's in charge of making those decisions is no longer part of this group, I have no optimism that this team will be good, and it will be one of those long, kind of purgatory situations where they're not bad enough to really get high-end draft picks, but they're not good enough to do anything of relevance.
And the thing about the Igor deal is, like, no one's passed him or gotten near that level yet, but goalie contracts are going up. Like, I'm looking at it right now where it used to be like 4 or 5. It's closer to like 6.5, 7. So you're talking about $3-4 million that you're trusting Chris Drury to not spend on a Will Borgen, to not spend on 2 Euro Vakanainen. So it's almost like, it sucks to say, but it allows Chris Drury to make less mistakes. Look, if this was something that doubled or tripled other elite goalies, sure. But I mean, I don't think paying, $3 or $4 million less for a good goaltender is what's making or breaking like the Rangers. I mean, I know it's like a weird contract. It's the first of its kind. And again, is a way that the Rangers are showing that maybe they're a little different than, other organizations in the way modern hockey's going, where you pay 2 goalies, 3.5 or 4, and you ride the hot one. I just don't think it's the problem. And I think if the Rangers didn't have that contract, gave a goalie $6 million and put the $5 million elsewhere, we'd be in the same spot. I just truly wholeheartedly think that, or it would be somewhere worse. We live in a world where that's a hypothetical, and we all got to say, what if we didn't do that and went elsewhere? So it's an imperfect exercise. But I mean, I just watch Igor play, and then you watch other guys lug up and down the ice. And it's like, I mean, Alexei Lafreniere at 7.5 is 100x more impacting this team negatively than Igor Shesterkin's contract is. And I don't know. It's an interesting team where time's going to tell what happens. They're not going to buy this year, hopefully, unless Chris Drury is, doing Chris Drury things.
If they buy this year, that's a joke.
So this team is probably what it is this year. and it's going to be a year
It's
where
not
maybe
though, because they have 4 kids in Hartford that should be playing.
it should. What I mean by that is Gabe Perreault's the one, but like I don't think Brett Berard or Offman are changing the ceiling too much of this team. I just think it is what it is. Like it's the other guys that have to get better, and they're probably not. Could Perreault come up and be the one
and not score with Perreault, Offman, and Berard and Morrow playing, or would you rather lose games and not score with Susi in the lineup, with Vakanainen playing, with Will Borgen playing, with Radish, Sheary, those types of guys in the top 6? Like, to me, if you're going to be a middle of the pack, lower pack team, do that while these kids are getting opportunity.
100%. No, I'm agreeing with you, but I'm also saying the other side of that, where in both scenarios you're still losing because the quality of the prospects probably isn't raising the ceiling too much besides Perreault. But I agree with you. If either way we're going to lose because our stars aren't stars, it's 100 times out of 100 that you should be giving these guys minutes. And if anything, it works better because you are so bad. No one's batting an eye if you put Perreault in the top 6. No one's batting an eye if Offman or Berard are, bottom 6 forwards, but because this year is the year it is, you give them each a chance as a second line winger just to see if you can find a spark. And then Morrow, don't even get me started. He's the one where it's like we're rolling out 4 defensemen who are not NHL defensemen, and we have this guy sitting there who isn't even a top prospect for us, plays a modern NHL style where he's a puck-moving defenseman, and he's just sitting there. I mean, those on any other team, and this gets back to the Chris Drury problem, those 4 guys are definitely in the NHL, getting nightly minutes. And it just makes no sense. And then I have to watch Hartford Wolfpack highlights last night, seeing that they're running a team off the ice because these guys are down there, but we can't play them, and we're getting run off the ice by the Sharks. It makes no sense. It's like, how bad does this team have to get before he's willing to call these guys up?
And it's bad when they're 0-4-1 at home this year. They're 19-23-4 since the start of last season, and we haven't even talked about that yet because
they're in last place. They're in last place, and they're playing like in the last week. They're playing like the worst team in hockey. So it's I don't know. I mean, the saving grace is they're in last place, but they're literally a point or 2 out of the second wild card. That's just where we are in the season. No one's going to be out at this point. That's not a positive thing about the Rangers. It's just if you're a loony fan like me looking for something like to look forward to, it's, hey, win tonight, and then I could potentially look at the standings, and because they played 2 or 3 more games than everyone, they're in that wild card spot. But I mean, Taylor Radish is the guy that we need to score goals. Connor Sheary's in the top 6. It's not looking bright for the Rangers, especially because any bright points are sitting in Hartford right now.
Bad GMs make bad moves, makes good teams bad. That's exactly what is going on right here. So, I mean, like, what else is there to say about Chris Drury that hasn't already been said, right? Like, he's turned this team into a perennial contender, into a team that's going to be, tanking for Gavin McKenna. And let's be honest, I'm excited looking at the standings and seeing them, right now, 3rd worst in the Eastern Conference. This is great. This is a great draft that you could be bad in. So, by all means, they're not a playoff team. If you're going to be bad, don't be average, because average sends you into hell. Average sends you into hell more than being bad.
Yeah, and you look at a game tonight, right? Another version of the toilet bowl that we just saw against the Sharks, and there's as a fan watching the game, I will never want them to lose. But I think I've come to the point, and it's taken 9 games only this season, but I've come to the point now where if they do lose, it's all right. Maybe we could actually find that player that they need that's young, comes into the top 6 and creates. Because if you have, say it's Gavin McKenna or not, but if hypothetically it was Gavin McKenna that they got, and now you have a top 6 that includes Gavin McKenna and Gabe Perreault, it limits the mistakes that Drury can make in terms of maybe don't re-sign Artemi Panarin and try to build around that. So there is a silver lining at the end of it, but knowing the Rangers, they're not going to get the Gavin McKenna level, because they're going to find ways with Igor Shesterkin and with some of the guys they have to win enough where, maybe they fall into the latter half of the top 10. And it's very frustrating to watch how in 2021, when Drury took over and we had that Cop Vetrano group where it was like they're overachieving. You could root for those guys, and then you go to win a President's Trophy. You go to a couple of conference finals, and you're like, okay, the team is there. Just make the right decisions around it. And not only has he made the wrong decisions around it, but he's also lost the team that was there. And it's just like you said, Steven, it's bad GMs. And there's not much more we could say. We'll see what happens tonight in Calgary. See if that is hopefully a game that they can find a way to win. And if it's not, well, there's a lot more issues, and hopefully Drury seat goes from warming up to getting really hot really quick.
We'll see. I mean, do you want to give predictions for the week? We got, 3 games between tonight and Thursday?
0-3.
0-3? Oh, it's fair. I mean, you
go
Calgary, Vancouver, Edmonton. So, by the way, the Rangers
1-1.
0-1-1?
No, 1-1-1.
1-1-1.
Because they're on the road. If they were at home, I'd say 0-3.
I mean, it's so hard. I'll give, since they can't win in overtime, I'll go 0-3. 0-3. You get 3 points out of it, and they're just going to continue losing games in overtime. So it's a great time to be a Ranger fan. It's fantastic. It's great. I love seeing Matthew Schaefer highlights every night, and Luke Hughes highlights, and Jack Hughes highlights, and all these teams that have these young guys that are really good. It's been fun. I'm gonna slowly but surely just start watching more Buffalo Sabres games this year.
Only 73 more to go, boys.
Only the New York Rangers could force me to watch Buffalo Sabres games. It's just where we're at the moment.
All right. Well, we'll see you guys during the week. We'll have a couple more games to talk about. And until then, hopefully it's not as miserable as it's been watching them at 8 o'clock tonight in Calgary.
It will
talk
be.
to you soon.
See you guys.